Welcome, everyone. I'm Dana Peever, decision expert, author, speaker, and podcast host. You're listening to the Wildly Courageous Women podcast. More women than ever are faced with challenging decisions on a regular basis. I am so privileged to sit down with them to discuss exactly what they've gone through and how they've come out the other side, realizing their wildest dreams. I'm sure you'll be able to relate. And don't forget to stay to the end to take advantage of my latest free gift. Let's get started. Hello, you wildly courageous women, you. Welcome to the Wildly Courageous Women podcast. I'm Dana Peever, decision expert. And as always, we're here talking about decisions that have been made in our lives that were courageous or impactful or changed the course of our life, or even one that we wish we could go back on. Every week I join you twice, once with a guest and once solo. Today, I'll be sharing an impactful decision that I've made in my life. Since I've been studying the science of decision making for over 30 years, the majority of my life's decisions have been made very intentionally, using my 5-step Decision Smith system and app. I'm going to walk you through all my thoughts behind the scenes, but before we get started, I just want to remind you to stay to the end to get access to my latest freebie. So, ironically, the topic I'm going to talk about today and the decision that I had to make is very closely related to my Decision Smith system. So, a little history about the evolution of the 5-step system that I created. And for those of you who don't know, I'll go all the way back more than 30 years. I was sitting in a first-year psychology class in university, and the TA or the professor, whoever was leading that class, had put this big onerous spreadsheet up on the board. It was a big matrix, and it was showing us how to make decisions as it related to the research methodologies that we were utilizing in the psychology class. And I was fascinated and I loved it. And I understood every single thing that was, on that matrix. And I'd never been exposed to anything like that previously. And so I came out of that class thinking, my goodness, if there's something that can help us make decisions in these big situations where there's lots of information and that kind of thing, there's got to be something that could help the layman, the everyday person, tackle their tough decisions and be able to do it with confidence. And that has become, my life's mission, to help people make tough decisions quickly and with confidence. And so, over the course of the last 30 some odd years, a lot has transpired. At the beginning, when I first started utilizing my 5-step system, I did a lot of writing things on paper and calculating and things like that. And then as Excel became a little bit more advanced, I started utilizing it as a mechanism to document and qualify and quantify all the factors and everything that we were taking into consideration. And then I got adventurous and I wanted to be able to have other people utilize my 5-step system and, an online version. So I actually had a developer create a web version. So back before we had access to all the apps on our phones and things like that, a lot of things were done, with a web page and where people could go and input information. So I had my 5-step system created into something that people could go online and input their information and then get their results. And that was, I think I had that online probably about 2014. And at that point in time, I think my system was still called the decision widget. And then widgets became more prolific in development of websites and things like that, other things. And I just felt like that was going to be a little too confusing for people. So that's when I went on my search to rename my system and my process and ultimately my app. And that's a decision in itself, choosing that name, the decision Smith. uh, and I'll just quickly tell you where that came from. I had gone in circles trying to come up with another name, other than Widget. And one week I was like, oh, I've been thinking about this for months now. What am I going to name this app? And I think that week I was involved with Python's Pit, and we had been interviewed by Connie Smith on TV. I had been talking to, I think, a trademark lawyer, and his last name was Smith. And then I had been put in the path of a dynamo that I'm still friends and business partners with, and her last name was Smith. And I thought to myself, my goodness, like the universe is saying, the name of your app needs to be the Decision Smith. Just make a decision already, and here it is right in front of your face. Anyway, I digress. So as I made the decision to create an actual app that would be in iTunes and Google Play, and back then there was a BlackBerry option, I chose not to spend money on that small market. I reached out to a couple people in IT that I'd worked with at different clients over the years to figure out if they knew anybody who was in the app development arena. And actually, one of the people that I tapped on the shoulder was very interested in the work that I was doing. And actually, we wound up having a conversation, and we actually went into partnership together. And he said he would build, obviously in return for half of the app's ownership and, anything that came out of it from a revenue perspective. So we signed that agreement, and, we became business partners. And we spent a lot of time trying to really key in on what it was we wanted to create. The foundation of it was there, but there's so many things that can be done with this app. And I think one of the things that maybe handcuffed us a little bit is that we both had such lofty ideas. And every time we sat down, we'd start to think about what we could do next and what we could do next and what we could do next. And we wound up having conversations about all the potentials versus the, what do we need to get done today? We were able to rein it back in a little bit, decide on our priorities, and then obviously I would need to leave it to him to execute. And he was a busy guy, and this wasn't his priority. And so I would check in every couple of months, and I would ask how things were going, and I'd get a vague update, and I'd be disappointed. But I was like, I know you're doing this in your spare time, and, we're not getting paid for it. So I understand. And then I'd reach out a couple months later, and same thing, no real progress. A couple times there was progress here and there, but not on the timelines that we had agreed upon together. So finally, after about 2 years of this, I couldn't do it anymore. I was becoming resentful, and I was not in a good place, even as it related to my system. Like, it was starting to affect that side of things. So I decided I just needed to walk away for now. I just, told him that I was busy with some other projects, and just that I was, at this point in time, I was just walking away from the need to get it done immediately. So I actually took about 1.5 years to, focus on some other things I was working on. I still had the online version, so that was good. And I could still use the Excel spreadsheet. So it's not like I was not able to still continue the coaching that I was doing, and helping people, work through those tough decisions. I just didn't have the app on the phone that I was really looking for. And so after about 1.5 years, I I decided that I had gotten over my frustration and resentment, and I had energy to put back into the project and to reinvigorate the partnership, and to start things off what I hoped was a good foot again. So I sought him out, and I um, talked to him about resurrecting the app, and he was fully on board, and was excited, and we got excited about our ideas again, and we really um had a plan and a vision, and it was going to be really good. And then a year went by, and I found myself back in the very same position. Now, if I can just put it in context, at that point in time, my app was about 85% done. There wasn't a lot of work left to be done on it. But I'm a neophyte when it comes to development and programs, and what's Firebase, and I don't even remember the other React Native, and some of the programs that I had to get him to spell them for me because I had no idea what they were. So for me to consider going out on my own, to even try and find somebody who could finish the app, like there was just so many unknowns for me. It was a scary world because I didn't know anything about app development. Nor did I really want to. I love my app, and I know exactly how it works and how all the algorithms work, but I didn't need to know how to program that so you could walk through it on a phone. So I had to make the really tough decision to fire my partner. And it's not a position I ever wanted to be in. I really thought we could work closely and get this done. But I understood, he had his work, he had a family, he had lots of things going on. And it wasn't as much of a passion for him as it had been for me, more than half my life. So as I went into that meeting to let him know that I was, severing our relationship, I clearly remember what one of my good friends shared with me before I was going into that meeting. She said, "What's the most absolute best outcome you can envision coming out of this?" And at the time, there were a few things that I thought he could do. He could say to me, "Okay, well, I developed all this, so bye. Good luck starting over." Or perhaps he could suggest that if I wanted all the work that he'd done to date, that I could purchase it from him. And that's really what I anticipated happening. And at that point in time, I'm sure we were $20,000 to $30,000 of work time in. So I think in my head, the best possible solution that I could have anticipated was, maybe a reduced price, maybe, walking away, having to spend $5,000 or $10,000 to get all that code from him. I also had hoped in my head that he might perhaps be able to at least outline for me what I needed to look for in my next app developer if I was going to continue on with this project. So, as you can imagine, I wasn't looking forward to the call. I wasn't, tough conversations are tough. There's no two ways about it. I don't shy away from conflict, and I don't shy away from conversations that need to happen. That doesn't mean I like them, and that doesn't mean that, I don't have a pit in my stomach and I don't get a little anxious about it. And I was, this was somebody who had been a friend, and, we'd worked really closely together. And here I was destroying a partnership because perhaps I was impatient, but at this point, I didn't think that I had not been patient. So we had the conversation, and he agreed that he had not held up, his end of the bargain. And just to confirm, in our contract, we had timelines set out and things like that. And so he apologized, and he acknowledged, and he was remorseful, and he did everything that a good, decent human being should do when they know they haven't been accountable. And I really appreciated that. And I felt like even just because of that, that we would be able to maintain our friendship. We just wouldn't necessarily continue in a partnership together. But what happened next blew my mind. And as I sit here recalling that, because that was probably 5 years ago, it brings me to tears. And I attribute it back to that friend of mine who said, "What is the best possible outcome you can imagine?" And I think I only vocalized what my conscious mind could consider. And I truly believe that my subconscious mind knew exactly what was going to happen. Because what he did is he came back to me and he said, "For all your pain and suffering, because I haven't met deadlines and you've been so patient, I would love to gift you all of the code that I've created so far. I'm going to give it to you. And I'll give you the parameters of what you need in a new app developer. And once you've shortlisted them, I will interview them for you and help you choose the best one and do a complete handover with them so they know exactly where things stand and what needs to be done." Yeah. I felt very fortunate in that moment because I actually didn't think I deserved that. I didn't know what I'd done to deserve such grace. And when I think of that interaction, I think of how poorly it could have gone, how ugly it could have gone. I think about, all the times I've heard of, business relationships taking a turn south and some of them becoming litigious. And I certainly wasn't prepared to go there, but I didn't think I would be left, appreciating this human being as much as I appreciated him in that moment. So, good to his word. He helped me find a new developer. He handed everything over. He, helped that developer with all the questions they had. And ultimately, within 3 or 4 months after that handover, I was able to launch the app. So it went live in October 2019. And since then, I've made, some updates and some changes. That app developer, oh my goodness, just bless his soul. His name is Ola, and I adored him. And he, the neophyte that I was, he'd ask me questions and I'd say, "I have no idea what you're asking me." So he would, dumb it down and put it in layman's terms for me and really coddled me and helped me through it. To the point I am almost today. Because earlier this year, I was in a situation where I wanted to make some more changes to it. I went back to Ola because we'd kept in touch over the years, and I asked if he had the bandwidth, and he didn't. He's got a few big projects on the go himself and just didn't have the bandwidth. And I appreciated him telling me that. So I was able to start working with another developer that I was extremely happy with. So, all in all, having to fire your business partner isn't a nice thing to have to do. It isn't an easy conversation to have to approach. But those words, what's the best possible outcome you can imagine? I think that was my saving grace. And I truly, truly appreciate the wisdom of that friend, as well as like I said, the grace and the charity of the partner that I was working with. So, to all of our listeners out there, thank you for joining me today to hear about my decision about firing my business partner. If you're ready to realize your wildest dreams, come and join us in the Wildly Courageous Women Facebook group, where we're changing people's lives one brave decision at a time. I'm Dana Peever. Until next time, make great decisions and do life fun. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Wildly Courageous Women. Keep listening to hear more stories of these incredible women realizing their wildest dreams. If you have a story to tell about a decision that you've made that has impacted your life, I'd love to feature you as a guest. Please get in touch and don't forget to grab my latest gift by clicking below. I'm Dana Peever. As always, make great decisions and do life fun.